Returning to the couch, they wrote ideas for a children's group on a piece of paper. They worked on a plan for the program for a whole week. The girls asked their friend Gabby whether the children's group could meet in her garage at the same time as the adults' meeting. Gabby's parents agreed. So, a place was found for the children to meet. They had to find kids to come to their meeting. The girls went to a park near their house. They saw several girls talking on a bench and went over to invite them. One girl named Sophia said she usually was alone and bored at home on Friday evenings. Sophia knew Gabby, and she happily accepted the invitation. Daphne also invited Sophia's friends to come. Daphne and Isadora walked around the park, inviting every child they saw. Everyone who heard their invitation agreed to come. On Friday evening, all the children from the park showed up at Gabby's garage. Daphne was happy and surprised to see Sophia and 25 other children. Daphne welcomed everyone and said, "We are so happy because it's Friday evening. It's already Sabbath." The other kids looked confused. "How can it be Sabbath?" said Sophia. It was exactly the response that Daphne had hoped for. She explained that the Bible teaches that the Sabbath lasts from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Then all of the children read in the Bible that God rested on the Sabbath after creating the earth. They also read the fourth commandment, which says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." After the Bible study, Daphne and her sister served popcorn with guava and mango juice. All the kids promised to come back next week. They liked the meeting. The next Friday, children arrived with gifts of candy and chocolate cake to eat after studying the Bible. As the weeks passed, Daphne saw that Sophia really liked learning about Jesus. A few months after the first meeting, Daphne asked Sophia whether she would like to give her heart to Jesus and be baptized. "Yes," Sophia exclaimed. Today, Sophia and several other children from the children's group have been baptized. And that's not all. Sophia's uncle and aunt heard her talking about the Bible and also wanted to be baptized. Daphne is so happy. Pray that many people in Brazil will know Jesus with the help of this quarter's 13th Sabbath offering, also known as the Quarterly Mission Project Offering. Part of the offering will help open a church for children at the Adventist Academy in the northeast of Brazil, which is located in the region where Daphne lives. Thank you for planning a generous offering for this important project.
Thank you. Well, as some of you may know, I've been across the world to the other side of Canada to visit my son, Kevin. He had asked me quite a few months ago, if I wanted to come out and see him for a few days. Well, I am not a flyer. I do not like flying. And there is no other way to get over there without many, many hours of driving. So I said, okay, I would do that, but only if my daughter would come with me, or somebody. And so I talked to Karina, and she said that she would come with me. She hadn't been there for a while either. So she said she'd come with me. And I have no idea what to do at airports, so she was my go-to person. So I had asked Myrna to come with me as well, and Myrna said no, she couldn't, and she said she didn't really want to leave Dawn for that long of a time. And I can understand, because men sometimes don't always know, well, I wouldn't say no, but they don't like to cook for themselves, and I know Jim never did. He never liked to cook. If I'd go away, he ate macaroni and cheese most of the time. So eventually, actually, it was Dawn that said, why don't you take Myrna to see her sister? So finally, Myrna and we decided, yes, that she would come. And actually, Dawn did visit his own family in Arkansas? Tennessee, while we were away. And so Myrna had a sister in Nova Scotia that she could visit. And, you know, the older we get, the less time we have to spend with family and friends. So Karina booked our flights from from Edmonton to Halifax. But from Kelowna to Edmonton, it was going to cost us over $900 for the two of us to fly just for 1 hour to Edmonton. And so I thought, well, that's an awful lot of money just for an hour's trip. So I said to Travis, how about you drive us out there, and then you fly back, and he could fly back for $60, but no luggage, nothing, just. So he said, okay, and then he would fly back to Edmonton and drive us back home. It's a lot of driving, but it's a lot less money. It was a lot cheaper. However, in the meantime, I had some problems. I had ended up in the hospital a few times with some heart troubles. And Myrna had had her accident, and so now we weren't sure if either one of us were going to be going to Nova Scotia. We were supposed to be leaving on September the 12th. September the 5th, I ended up in the hospital. And when I was there, I asked the doctor about going to Nova Scotia. She said, well, I wouldn't really recommend it, but she said, why don't you do a stress test and we'll see what's happening. My blood pressure was going crazy and my heart rate was going crazy. So she did the stress test and everything seemed to be okay. So they said, fine, go ahead, and gave me some medications, and so we thought we were good to go. Myrna had an appointment on Wednesday before we were flying out on Friday to see about her cast and her air cast on her leg, whether that would be a problem on the plane. Well, when she went, they took everything off. Casts were gone. So, great. Now we had no casts. I was ready to go, and she was ready to go. I had since changed my mind about driving to Edmonton. I thought, Karina, check and see if we can find a cheap flight from Kelowna to Edmonton, and we'll just fly that one way, and then Travis is going to be out there anyway, so we can come back with him. So she booked us some flights on Flair. Fairly good price. So September 12, 9 o'clock, we left Salmon Arm. Drove to the airport. We were there about 10:15. The flight was leaving at 12:40. Lots of time, right? Well, Myrna got registered, and then they were registering me, and I had just renewed my driver's license the 12th of August, and it still hadn't arrived by the 12th of September. So I didn't know what had happened to it in the meantime, but they said it would be a couple weeks, and I thought, okay, but it hadn't come. So when I got to registering, they said, we need some photo ID. I didn't have a driver's license. All I had was the yellow slip of paper saying that I could still drive. That wasn't good enough. I had my SIN number. Wouldn't work. You cannot get on the plane. I'm sorry, but you can't go. Well, I called Karina. She looked for a flight on WestJet. Well, it was going to cost $900 just for one flight. So I said no. So I told Myrna, you're going to have to go by yourself. I said, they won't let me on. They just won't. They said it was Transport Canada. That was their fault. So we tried birth certificate. She asked me for my birth certificate. I gave it to her. She said, I'm sorry, it's your maiden name. We don't know that it's you because it hasn't got your married name on it. Well, I thought, okay. Myrna, go, because my daughter was going to pick us up in Edmonton. So I said, just go and I'll see. Travis said, I'll drive you there, Mom, but then the lady said, well, there's only maybe one thing you could do, and that is if you go to the police station in Kelowna and tell them that you lost your driver's license, they might give you a slip of paper so that you can get on the plane. Okay, we'll try. So we drove to Kelowna, 20 minutes, and went to the police station, went to the counter, and Travis said, my mom has renewed her driver's license and they haven't given it back to her yet, and could you give us a slip of paper? The airport, so I'm sorry, but she didn't lose it. Okay. He said, so if I go to that lady next door and I tell her that my mom's lost her driver's license, that she will give it to me? And the lady said, oh, I didn't hear you say anything. So he went to the next teller. I said, Travis, you're going to be lying. He said, do you want to get on the plane, Mom? Lord, what do I do here? So he went to the lady next to the next hill, and he told her that I had lost my driver's license. Now, I didn't know if I had or not, because whether the mail had lost it, I didn't know. So whether that was something that God forgave me for, I don't know. But at this point, it was getting to the point where the lady asked me for my birth certificate. I gave it to her. She asked me for the yellow paper. I gave it to her. And she signed the paper, stamped it with a seal, and gave me the paper, and I went back to the airport. Well, we got to the airport, and they had just shut down the computers for that flight. But the lady said, I'll bring it back up and get you on. So we got to the place where you go down to the plane, and the ladies there take your paper, and the one that was at the counter, she said, so did you get the paper? And I handed it to her, and she looked at it. Okay, so they put me on the plane. In the meantime, Myrna was on the plane. She had phoned me as we were coming back from Kelowna. Judy, what's happening? She had borrowed a phone from somebody. I said, Myrna, I'm almost there, just hang in. So I gave her the paper, and I got on the plane. Well, we arrived in Edmonton at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We stayed with my sister that night, went to Sherwood Park Church the next morning, and I'll tell you something, people, I will never complain about our seats being hard again, because theirs do not have any cushioning. It's just solid wood. And if there's a long sermon, it was torture almost, just for the seats were terrible. Well, we were doing the red eye, so we were leaving at 10:30 that night. Ever try sleeping on a plane? Myrna tried. I didn't even try. We arrived at 7 a.m. in the morning in Halifax, and my son picked us up, and we went out for breakfast and then drove to their place. And we had a very nice visit from there on. It was great. Went to Peggy's Cove. If you've ever been to Peggy's Cove, very nice place to be, although guess I'm getting old, because I do not like crowds of people, and there was tons and tons of people. Karina loves the beach, and I do too, so we sat on the beaches and listened to the waves coming in. We took the Harbor Hopper. Have you ever heard of the Harbor Hopper? Well, it's a trolley that drives through Halifax all the way up to Citadel and all the way through it, and then it goes down to the ocean, and it turns into a boat, and you go through the harbor and on the boat, on the water. It was so cool. And the captain of the boat there, the car, he said, before we went into the water, he said, "You guys bring your umbrellas?" We said, no. And it was a warm day, thank goodness, because he took a run at the water, and of course it splashed all over us. Went to Pugwash to see a friend of mine. I don't know if anybody here would know Bev and Laurie Mosier. And yeah, I went to see Bev. We grew up together in Terrace as church school. And her husband had passed away about 7 years ago. I got talking about him. I said, "How did you ever meet him?" I said, "Because you lived in Terrace and he lived in Halifax. How did you ever meet?" She said, "Well, we went to school." She said, "I went to nursing school, and he was there as an X-ray learning to be an X-ray technologist, and we just met." And I said, "Yeah, Laurie is like up here, and you're down here." She said, "Yeah." I said, "How tall really was Laurie?" Do you know how tall he was, Croy?
When I was 7 years old and he was a X-ray tech in Sydney, he used to tell us he was 6'13".
Well, he was 6'10", she said, when she married him. So,
Okay.
And yeah, Laurie was a tall dude, very tall. And the colors, the beautiful colors in the fall as we were driving to Pugwash. It was just gorgeous. It's like God painted here, there, red, orange, yellow, green. It was just beautiful. If I had had time, I took pictures, I would have brought them. But anyway, Myrna and her sister swam in the ocean every single day, almost every day, because there was a couple that she didn't. And I said, "Myrna, you got to be braver than me, because I would not want to go in the ocean at this time of the year." So in the meantime, I had asked Travis, if my driver's license comes, please send it to me, because I didn't want to go through all that hassle again coming back. So Thursday, September the 25th, he said, "Mom, it's come." I said, "Okay, send it, but don't send it by mail. Send it by Purolator." It was supposed to arrive on Monday, and I said, "Send it to Kevin's work in Halifax, because Kevin lives way out of town." It cost me $69 just to send a little card by Purolator. Anyway, Kevin called on Monday to see if it had arrived. Well, it had been sent to Calgary. Tuesday was a holiday. Wednesday, Kevin called again. It had come, but it had not come before the trucks had went out. So he drove over to Purolator, couldn't find it. They could not find it anywhere. He said, "Could you try again?" They went and looked again. Couldn't find it anywhere. They said, "Come back tomorrow." We were leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning. There was no way we were going to go tomorrow to pick it up. So he said, "Mom," I said a little prayer, and I said, "Try again." And they went and found it. So there was one miracle that happened. So we left at Halifax at 7 a.m. We arrived in Edmonton at 9 a.m. Now, isn't that amazing? Well, we know the time change was quite a bit different. And then we spent the day visiting in Edmonton. And Kevin drove us around to the Edmonton South Seventh-day Adventist Church, where Hamo and my husband and Myrna and I, and we all helped build that church. So we wanted to just take Myrna around one more time to see it. The next day, Travis drove us home from in the car from Edmonton to Salmon Arm. And it was so good to be back home again. And it's so good to be back here at church. And now Myrna is sick again. Myrna has been sick for a few days, so she really needs our prayers. So now it is time for us to do our lesson study. We have, I think, a class in the sanctuary and one upstairs in the boardroom still. And I'm not sure about the one in the school. Okay, thank you.